Hello, I'm Callum Dilietto, and this is Flock Together, the podcast for events and travel professionals. And it is my pleasure to say that Season 1 is in partnership with Visit Berlin, Berlin Convention Office, and we are here today at Chewton Glen. More excitingly, I am joined by Elena Clowes from Cheerful 21st. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Very well, very well. It's the first ever season of what is going to be the most prestigious podcast in the industry.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. How is things with you in your career and your job and what you're up to?
It's good, it's busy. I can't believe we're at the end of another year. Delivered some really cool projects this year, worked on some really nice pieces of creative, and then outside of my day job, with First Steps, we've got some really exciting things coming too. So it's all happening.
Interesting. Yeah. So event First Steps, just very briefly for those that don't know about it, tell us what that is.
It's the industry's first initiative designed to help newcomers to the industry, whether they're coming from uni or they're having a career change later in life, helping them to find their place in industry and, ensuring they fit in and find a job that suits them and helps them to thrive.
Well, the first part of the podcast is all about writing a letter to the industry. Mm-hmm. It's getting that feather from the Flock Together logo and using it as a quill to jot down your thoughts. So, it possibly ties in with those kind of things, but you are always out there. You always have an opinion.
Feels negative. Feels aggressive.
Take it how you will. Take it how you will. So, what is your letter to the industry? What is it that you want the industry to know?
I think for me, one thing that I am very passionate about, and I do talk about it a lot, is just ensuring that we're encouraging as much diversity in our industry as possible. So making sure that we're hiring, being really open-minded, not just looking for people with degrees or specific backgrounds. We hired a junior creative in our team a few years ago that was actually trained as a plumber, and he was really bringing some interesting ideas to the table, thinking of things in ways that we would not. So for me, it's having a really open mind for diversity and hiring for our industry to make sure it's the best that it can be.
That's probably one of my favourite examples of transferable skills there, because often people, when they hire out of the industry, they hire out of like the secondary or tertiary kind of the peripheries, as it were. But plumber, that's rogue.
Well, we liked his CV, and then he did a follow-up on LinkedIn. I love a follow-up on LinkedIn. And then when we met him, his vibe was just very infectious. And he was so keen to learn. And I think technical skills are something you can learn. People skills are something you can't. And he was such a great addition to the team. And yeah, everyone was like, that's a rogue choice. But actually, I was like, this is how we should be hiring. If you get the right vibe about someone, you can teach them the rest.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so for that. All the people that I've hired in my career, I always try to look outside the box and give people a chance, because there's that weird vicious circle of you need experience in order to get the job, and to get the job you need experience, and you need experience to get the job. And the only way to break that circle is to give people a chance.
Yeah, you hire a plumber, I'm telling you.
So that was the reform section of the podcast. The next is remember. So yes. I'd like you to remember the first ever work trip that you went on.
So I feel like it was years ago. I feel super old. But I was thinking back to the first fam I ever went on, which was to Dubai. And I still think about it as one of the best fams I've actually ever been on, just because of the activities we did. And I think probably because I'd never been exposed to a fam before, which is obviously the best of everything. And you're in Dubai, which is already ostentatious and crazy. That was my first fam, and it was pretty memorable. We went up to the top of the Burj. We did the most amazing desert safari, I guess. We started off in the late afternoon, and then we watched a hawk show at sunset, and then a guy came out with a telescope and was showing us planets and stars, and it was it was pretty magical. Weird that it was a group of 30 strangers that I'd never met before, because it was quite romantic, but it was really dope. It was a very, very cool fam. And I also remember, this is maybe just a girl thing, but the hotel, the bath had a tap that basically ran from the ceiling, and I was like, heaven, beautiful.
That's such a weird thing to be like, yes, I loved that.
Listen, the bath is the key thing in a hotel room. I'm so sorry.
Fair. You're like, yeah, it was so magical. We saw the stars in the desert. But the most important thing was the plumbing. And now I know why you hire a plumber.
And it all comes back around.
So that was your first ever work trip. What
yeah.
about the most recent work trip? Like the trip you've kind of remember from most recently?
The most recent was a pretty hectic run in New York, delivering 2 events in the space of a week. But I love New York. New York feels like one of my spiritual home away from homes. And we landed. I went straight into build the next day for one event at this really cool venue in Manhattan, which has a lot of screens. So you can do really immersive stuff with moving graphics. So that was really, really beautiful. And then we were then across 3 or 4 different venues around Midtown during Fashion Week. It wasn't a Fashion Week event, so it was just super busy, intense. But there's something about like being on site and the buzz of it and the rush of it, and then combining that with being in New York, which is already mad energy. That was my most recent trip. It was exhausting, but I loved it.
We often compete about our love for New York. It's a known rivalry between us. Like, who owns the city more?
Obviously me.
It's debatable. It's debatable. I feel like I opened your eyes to New York. I'm
not taking credit for that.
I gave you the city to play in. You know, I've loaned you the city for a bit. But no, that does sound amazing. I think there is something super infectious about it. Like, you know, as soon as you're there, you just feel the energy. Like, it just emits from every direction, and you just feed off of it. And I think some people absolutely love that, and other people it can be just like overwhelming.
I think it is like super sensory overload, like the smells of the city, the sounds of the city. But for me also creatively, like even just walking from your hotel down to get a smoothie or whatever, like you're bombarded with street art and so many pieces of inspiration. And yeah, it's basically a giant mood board. I love it.
Yeah. So the next part is all about revisiting. And if you could go back in time,
Yes.
and teleport to a point in your life where you were on a trip and you were having this amazing destination experience, what destination experience would you relive?
The Ha Giang Loop in Vietnam.
Ah.
Yes. So I was super lucky enough to be able to travel Asia, and I saw a lot of beautiful, beautiful things. But the Ha Giang Loop in Vietnam is like a 350-kilometer motorcycle loop, and you can either basically it's a rite of passage if you're backpacking. Everyone kind of does it. You can either ride the bike yourself, or it's called easy riding, and you get on the back, and some Vietnam guy takes his life in your hands and literally looks after you for like 4 days. And you start out in a really remote village in northern Vietnam. And yeah, it takes 3 or 4 days, and you stop every night at a different tiny village, and it's a homestay, and you're staying basically on a mattress on the floor with a mosquito net. There's like 30 of you in a group, and they're making their own alcohol. They call it happy water. And like, so when you've made it through one day and you haven't died in this like treacherous terrain, you have happy water, you go to bed, and it's really like no luxury, no frills. But I remember doing it and thinking it would be such a dope fam trip, because the experience and like how you're bonded together is really magical. And besides the fact like you're seeing some amazing vistas, you touch basically the border of China, you come back round, and it was really incredible. And in pounds, it costs about, let's say, 70, 80 pounds. It's like one of the most expensive excursions you can do. Best 3-4 days of my life.
I think there's definitely something about like immersing yourself with the local culture as much as possible, and that sounds like the best way to do that. Like
Literally.
I've been on trips before where you eat in someone's home and things like that, and I just thought this is the best way to truly understand a destination and truly understand the people within it. And yeah, that sounds right up my street.
It was insane. And yeah, the food along the way, and you'd see like children like waving as the bikes came through the village and like high-fiving you, and it was just so wholesome and so funny, very random. When I was in Cambodia, I randomly met a girl from a northern events agency who'd done the same thing. And she was like, when I was on it, I thought it'd be perfect for a fam. And I was like, oh my God, I know. So I feel like it'd be the most dangerous fam you ever did, but it would be amazing.
Well, talking of fams, the next section of the podcast, I'd like you to kind of reimagine and create an incentive trip for yourself. Like if you were to be organising an incentive for yourself, firstly, where would you go? What would you do? But also, what celebrity would you bring along to be part of that trip with you?
So this may or may not surprise you, but I would do Indonesia, Malaysia, and I would do part of it in Borneo and do like a conservation day or a few days. And I would have David Attenborough come and speak to the guests and just share his knowledge. He is a national treasure. But I just think something about giving back and then also learning from him would be absolutely incredible. And it's on my bucket list, so that would help tick it off, to be honest.
I love that. Yeah, I really want to give back, but also it's on my bucket list. So yeah, I just want to see some orangutans, and if David Attenborough's there as well. To be honest, I really would love to meet him. Mm-hmm. He's 96 now.
We have to wrap him in a bubble.
Yeah,
like we actually do.
It's very that, and I just think all the work he's done for conservation is incredible, and I think our industry could certainly learn a lot from the conservation
100%.
industry.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to international travel and group travel and trips, and there's parachuting help, which is not beneficial at all, and then there's really like connecting with the locals and using their knowledge and expertise to truly give back to the destination and help conservation.
100%. And in Indonesia and Malaysia as well, some of the things I have seen about like their community element as well, when they host community events, like everyone's involved and there's such a feeling of oneness. So I think, yeah, combined, it would be a really cool fam if anyone wants to help me make that happen.
So the final part is a reaction quiz. So I would like you to react as fast as you can to the questions that I'm about to give you, okay?
Yeah.
It's quick fire, so no messing around, no thinking, just go for it.
Okay.
Packing, last minute or the week before?
Last minute.
Carry on or check in?
Check in.
Airport, lounge or shopping?
Lounge.
Aisle or window?
Window.
City or nature?
Both.
Both. So, a city in and amongst Kuala Lumpur.
New York, you got the water and you've got the city.
I don't know if I'd give the Hudson nature, but okay. Lay-in or early start?
Early.
Poolside or seaside?
Poolside.
You don't like sand?
I don't like sand.
I hate sand.
I really don't like sand. I know that it's cute on the beach, but not the sand everywhere.
Planned or spontaneous?
Planned.
Oh, okay.
I do like spontaneous stuff, but the event planner in me likes a structure.
Fair. And finally, hotels, boutique or brand?
Boutique.
Okay, well, there you go. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the first season of Flock Together. And I hope that someone listens to this and makes your dream trip.
Indomalayan fam, come on.
Let's do it.
Thank you for having me.